My name is Robert Walker and I'm Brand Manager for RetirementHomes.com. Welcome to our September webinar. We are North America's leading online sales and marketing solutions provider, including our housing directory, our online library, and e-newsletters. We also offer, free of charge to senior living communities, the top experts in senior living every month who will share their knowledge in the fields of marketing, research, sales, and related areas in webinars such as the one you're about to hear. This month we present popular senior living blogger Steve Moran, a 30-year veteran of the senior living industry and operator of the Senior Housing Forum blog. Steve's presentation, 8 semi-easy and semi-cheap ways to improve occupancy, will share practical tools to help fill beds in your communities. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you would like a question answered during the presentation, raise your hand in the toolbar to the right, type in your question, and time permitting, it will be answered during the webinar. And of course, you are also welcome to ask any questions at all during. And now, please welcome Steve.
It's real exciting to be able to present this seminar to you today. Webinars are always the hardest things to do because I have no idea how to read the audience, but we're going to give it a shot here. I came across this little cartoon for the presentation here that I offer you, and I think that sometimes when you get on the internet, you sort of worry, is there really truth in advertising? How good is this thing going to be? And so I hope this will be of some real value to you as we move through the presentation. The title started out as 5 semi-easy, semi-cheap ways to improve occupancy. I actually added to it as I was developing it, and so you'll see, I think 7 ideas actually is what we're going to spend some time talking about. First thing I want to do is I really want to thank you for what you do. It's a job that has tremendous rewards. It also can be very thankless. It seems like oftentimes residents are never quite satisfied, and their families are never quite satisfied. And so to be willing to put yourself out there to promote your communities is really a brave and a wonderful thing, particularly if you're focusing on marketing your building. That is an area that people get pretty cynical about. I published a blog article a few months ago about how a community had added an internal daycare program for dementia residents, and I got blasted by a couple people for just being focused on money. But the truth of the matter is that by keeping your building full, by maximizing revenues, it actually gives you better resources for taking good care of your residents, providing them the best possible activities, for giving them the highest quality of life. I'd like to start with a little video here for you. This is mostly just for fun, but I think it has some application to what we're doing here. Yeah, a little technical problem there. So I want to start out by just talking about the marketplace. First thing is that we want to talk a little bit about what the competition looks like. The obvious competition is the building down the street, the other assisted living or CCRC, or that you know, that you watch, that you wonder how they're doing. But really, those are not necessarily the biggest competitors. They're important. The other one is that those little 5- and 6-bed mom and pops, they serve a real important part of the marketplace for people often who don't do well in a bigger environment, or people who just can't afford a full-service community. Skilled nursing is maybe a competition, but I think that one of the things that we oftentimes forget is that really our biggest competition is that people decide to stay home rather than move into a senior housing community. And so as I talk to communities, as I travel around the country, one of the things I'm always really interested in hearing about is what people are doing to be able to reach out to people who would otherwise say, nah, I don't think assisted living, I don't think independent living is for me. I really am just going to stay home because going into a community represents a loss of freedom and a loss of stuff. So as you look at the assisted living marketplace today, we've got about 10 or 11% of the population live in a senior housing community. That leaves a big market that we're not really tapping. About 900,000 are living in assisted living. The reality is, of course, is that most people prefer to live and age in place in their own home or apartment. When I was very young and not so smart, I always said that I was in the senior housing business to make enough money that I would never have to go into one of the communities that I built and that I operated. I'm a little older now. I've been into some amazing communities, and I have now come to the conclusion that when the time is right, that I do know that that's where I will end up living, that I will have a better quality of life than I stayed at home. But I'm really sympathetic to the idea that going into assisted living represents a loss of independence and a loss of precious possessions. And the biggest problem, perhaps, is that when I go into a senior living, it says to me somehow I'm on the final downhill slide. I'm going into this place, might even think institution, and I'm never coming out again. I'm never going to go home again. And that's a pretty tough thing for people to do. So when you look at the assisted living marketplace, the place where you folks are competing, you've got this situation where you've got a lot of lookalikes. Buildings look pretty similar. The programs look pretty similar. It'll come and you're going to have the greatest lifestyle. You're going to have the greatest food. You're going to have the greatest activity programs. You go to look at senior housing web pages, they're all going to look pretty much alike. And then we start reading about how there's this big wave of population growth that's going to create this huge shortage. And yet, I'm not quite so sure that that's true. Average occupancies in senior housing and assisted living are in the 87–88% range. There's lots of new construction going on in almost every marketplace. There are more choices, more competition, home health. People are trying to figure out new ways to tackle this big move. So you've got home health, assisted living without walls, and people are starting to move in with their family just because of the economics. The other thing that I see as I look at the assisted living marketplace and the marketing of assisted living is that the marketing materials and even the marketing language mostly really pretends that the decision is primarily a lifestyle choice. And in reality, it's a hard decision. It's a choice that's based on needs, that people can no longer adequately care for themselves either because of nutrition or medication or activities of daily living, and it's a forced choice. And as it turns out, it's really one of the most difficult choices that seniors ever make. It's right up there with choosing to get married, having the death of a spouse. It's a very, very stressful thing. And as you look at people, and you talk to people who finally make the decision to move into a senior housing community, the biggest single reason that they choose a particular building or a particular community is because of location. And I sort of dream of the day where somebody creates a community that's so amazing, that's so fantastic, where they're willing to drive 20 or 30 minutes because they say, I'm going to have a better lifestyle, and the location does not become the most important thing. And so when people make that move, it's usually a triggering event that takes place that causes that move. So here are the big 5 that turned into the big 7 that we're going to talk about today. I want to talk for just a few minutes about keeping your residents longer. It's an area that I'm really passionate about, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today. I'm going to talk about finding your maven, spend some time talking about Facebook, Video Rocks. I want to talk about Yelp and Google+. I'm going to talk a little bit about who comes to visit your communities, and then I want to talk a little bit about how you can be newsworthy and that you can get people into your building. First one, keep your residents longer. This seems like a no-brainer. The math is pretty simple. If you have a 100-unit community and you can increase your resident stay, your average length of stay by 4 weeks, that equals 7 move-ins. That means no marketing costs, means no cleaning, no repainting, no more of those kinds of things. So the question is, what do you do to make that happen? The first thing is that our residents are frail. And so it means having nurses. 8 hours a day would seem to be, for most communities, a minimum. There are a number of buildings out there that have gone to really a medical model where they've got nurses on 24/7, 5 days a week with PT, OT, speech, a house physician that actually comes into the building, or a physician's group, particularly if they've got physicians assistants or nurse practitioners who can do a lot of the day-to-day things that a physician has traditionally done. There's a program called Interact 2. Don't have the link here, but if you're interested in it, I can get that out. I'll be writing an article on it in a few weeks that has a number of tools that were written primarily for skilled nursing communities to be able to reduce hospital readmit, but there are some things in there that really apply to assisted living that could really help in keeping your residents longer. The other thing is that we need to be looking at programs where where residents want to come into your building sooner. I was at a building last week in Washington talking to the executive director, and he was telling me that he had a gentleman who was a resident in his building who had a master's degree, who had worked for the Secret Service and protected, I think, 5 or 6 presidents. And I'm just not sure that bingo is going to be the kind of thing that's really going to make somebody like that get excited about getting up every day. And so we need to be able to create an environment where people who have been living these active, inquisitive lives are going to be able to continue to live those lives and enhance those lives as they move into the communities. And as a bonus, if you start doing these things, you'll actually see not only will your occupancy increase, but you also see a bonus increase in revenue. The second thing to do is that you need to find a maven, or perhaps more than one maven. As I have talked to communities that are consistently full, the one thing that I find that's common in those communities is they have a tremendous referral network. They have people who know a lot of people. Sometimes it's in the hospital, sometimes it's in churches, sometimes it's in service communities, service clubs, and these are people who are mavens. They are trusted. They are people who like to pass knowledge on to others. They are people who know about you. They are people who like you. They are people who trust you, who feel comfortable referring you. And so to really pay attention and look around and even look at the network you have and say, who is it that's sending me residents? What can I do to help them do a better job? What can I do to say thank you? Almost never is it money or monetary things that reward them, that feed them. It's usually affirmation, just a simple thank you. And so really looking for your mavens becomes a huge, important thing for you to do. Facebook. I have believed for many, many months that Facebook can be a community's best friend. As I've been looking at, or putting together this presentation, I've looked at hundreds of Facebook pages for communities. Been a bit disappointed in what I see. We're actually going to take a look at them here in a few minutes. I find that what you'll find in the Facebook community is that most users are on several times a week. People use it to stay in touch. We tend to think of it as a young person's venue on the web, but the truth of the matter is that there are lots of seniors who are there. Both my parents who are in their 80s are on there, and it's a way, even though they live close, it's a way we have touches during the week when we don't see face to face. Most assisted living communities are finding wireless to be a requirement. Residents are using it for email, to look at news, and for Facebook. Most of your prospect families will have Facebook. Many and most residents will have a Facebook account. And the big thing is that it's a place to tell your story over and over again. So let's take a look now at a couple of web pages here. This is Canyon Creek. It's in Utah, and I really like this page. The first thing they do is you've got a nice picture of the front of the building. It's got their sign on it. It's got their logo here. They've got a link to their local web page. They've got a link to their blog. Map is on here. They've got events that they put up. And you can see that they're doing a pretty good job. They've got more than 800 likes. They've got 52 people who are talking about it, which means that they're posting here. They've got 283 people who have used the Facebook check-in to say we've been at this place, and they're doing a lot of pictures. And so you've got all these resident pictures. Look at the smiles here. And so love those smiles. They're doing an Alzheimer's walk. You've got a 100th birthday party. Again, you've got these smiles. And the thing is we're looking for ways for people to create those kinds of smiles, for people to look at that. You go down on the web page here, you can see that there's fairly recent activity. They've got something that was just posted 14 hours ago. And I've got, we'll make this presentation available it's got links to these pages. You've got recommendations that have been made here. And so they've done a really nice job almost. And I'm going to talk about that almost in a few minutes. The next one is this one. This one's not quite as good, nice. They don't have any links here, but they do have a lot of photos. But a few photos here. And the biggest thing is they've got these building photos. Perhaps that's an okay thing to do. The problem is that they're going to look like everybody else's pictures, and what people really want to see is their family members, what it's really like to be living in and working in that community. Now, the one thing they seem to have done a really good job of is they've got 3,300 likes in this building. This one was another one I found, and the thing I really liked about this one, won't spend so much time on it though, is look at the smiles here. I look at these pages and those smiles, and it makes me smile. It makes me think that if I were looking for a community for my mom or my grandmother, I want to know that when they move in, that they're going to be active like these ladies in the main picture, like this lady here in the corner. I want to know that they're going to be smiling, that it's going to be a good quality experience for them. This last one here, I hope I don't have anybody from this community on here, is one that just needs a little bit of effort. And I would just offer to you that it's better to not have a Facebook page than to have one that's neglected. So they do have a link. They've got a kind of fuzzy logo picture there, which doesn't really serve them very well. They've got a few photos. And probably the biggest single problem they've got is they're not staying current in their posting. So if you look here, the last significant posting was in June. Somebody in May posted, somebody needs to update this web page. I miss hearing about it. You've got something in March. And so being able to stay on top of these things is very, very important. So here are sort of some things that I would really recommend for Facebook, some very specific ideas. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the name of your community, the address are there, and a map to community is easy to find on the page. The second thing is you want to make sure you've got good links on the web page. You want to make sure that it links to your local web page, maybe a link to your corporate if you're a corporate community, links to your blog or other pages. This is the other thing that I would recommend, and honestly I haven't seen people doing this, but I think this is a way to find your mavens, is that as your residents come into your community, I would recommend that you work with the family and the resident to set up a Facebook page for every single resident. This certainly has to be permission-based. You cannot do it without the family and the residents agreeing to that. And then once I've done that, I would take lots and lots of pictures. My goal would be to post 20 to 30 new pictures every single week of resident activities. And as I was posting those, I would take the time to tag the residents who were in those pictures, and where you have permission to, which then allows family members to see those photos on their page. And so what happens is now you've got this huge network where these pictures are telling the story of what makes your community different, how you're taking care of residents, how residents are living a fulfilling, happy life. The other things you can do is to hold contests to get people to like your page. Simple things you can offer, meal discounts, Starbucks cards, Jamba Juice cards, those kinds of things. I would encourage people to post comments, to comment on pictures. Might even hold a caption contest for some photos. And then, again, I just can't stress enough, you need to tag people, friends, employees, visitors, entertainers. Again, you need to be mindful, particularly with residents, that you don't violate their privacy and tag people who have not given permission. But it is a way to vastly expand your presence in the local marketplace. Video. One of the things that I have not seen a lot of is video, and it doesn't have to be complex. I do see a lot of videos on YouTube where communities have gone out and hired professional videographers to create little YouTube commercials, and I guess that's okay. It gives you something to hand to prospects as they come through. But when I look at those pages on YouTube, it's always sort of surprising at how few views they have. I'm thinking more in terms of taking that little digital camera that you're using every day that you probably never noticed. You can flip the switch over or the dial over one more time and you have the ability to shoot video. Just shoot little clips, 15, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, no more than that, of resident activities. Post those on your Facebook page, post those on YouTube. Show them to your residents, show them to families. You can email them. Don't do video tours, though. You do a video tour, professionally done, you feel pretty good, it looks great. The problem is that it gives people an excuse to not come visit your community. It takes away the opportunity to have dialogue as you are moving forward with your residents. So I would focus this, make this resident focused, make this activity focused, because again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get people in your community talking about your assisted living home. And you want them talking about yours in a positive way more than other communities, and so the more things that you can do to bring attention to yourself, the better off you will be. I want to give you an example of one here. Let's see if we can try this and it works any better. It just kind of makes you smile, doesn't it? Music is a little bit edgy in this particular video, but imagine the camaraderie that you build in your community by doing a video. This was done as a school project for somebody who came in and did this. It's a little longer than what I was talking about, but it was just a real real edgy video. You can take a copy of a video like that, a DVD like that, and you can put it in your information packets as residents come in. And I kind of look at that and I'm thinking, yeah, you know, my mom kind of might like doing something like that, playing with that. One of the questions that somebody asked was, how do you deal with the competition between residents? And it's a really, really tough problem, because the truth of the matter is we all want to be stars. And it's something that you need to do as kind of a case-by-case basis. I think particularly with the photographs, I think that you need to be very conscious of making sure that you include as many people, everybody who wants to be included. I know that in the springtime, I take a bunch of teenagers down to Mexico, and we do a church building project. And one of the things I work very carefully to do is to make sure that I capture everybody in photographs. It's never going to be exactly even, and frankly, some people are just more photogenic. And so it's kind of a tough struggle, but I think you try to do as much balancing as you can. If somebody complains, I think that one of the ways you do is, so if you just blow it and you didn't get somebody, is to say, oops, we're going to do it again. And it's one of the reasons for doing lots of these kinds of things, because it really can include everybody, and you don't want to have hurt feelings. So some specifics here. Post your videos to Facebook. Post them to YouTube, to Vimeo, your local community's webpage. Send out links in your Facebook status. Put a link in your newsletter. Send out emails to all your prospects with the links. Make sure your marketing staff has these and uses these tools. Yelp and Google. We live in a society where we have learned to not trust anybody. We are suspicious of marketing people, we don't trust advertising, and we love to complain. Back in 2004, somebody formed Yelp. The idea of Yelp was that people could come in and tell their story. Today, there are 78 million views a month. There are 30 million reviews. And so I just wondering, you know, how many of you actually go to Yelp when you're looking for something? Maybe better yet, have you ever used Yelp to complain? And you have to look at this, as you look at something like Yelp, you have to ask what kind of people post to Yelp. Once in a while, someone will go in and say, man, this is a great place. Mostly people use it as a place to complain. I drove 2 weeks ago from Sacramento, which is where I live, up to Seattle. I had a car I had to deliver to my son up there, and I had some customers I was calling on. Stopped in Redding and went to Taco Bell, and I'm a vegetarian, and so I asked them to substitute beans for meat. They were glad to do that, except that they wanted to charge me 65 cents more on my $1 taco. So I said, no thanks. I walked down and bought Subway, went to the place where I was staying, got on Yelp, and trashed them. And so that's what people do. And so they're going to do that with your senior housing community. At this point, I don't see a lot of senior housing. In fact, we're going to take a look at a couple of real-life examples, but I honestly really had to search. But just because it's not there doesn't mean it isn't coming. Google Plus is not as popular. You don't see as many ratings there, but it is pervasive. If you do a search on a specific community, you're going to see a Google Plus rating come up. So let's take a look at Yelp in real life. And I picked San Jose just because it was primarily because it was a place I could actually find a some communities that had some ratings on them. So assisted living, San Jose, California. You can have some filtering here. You'll find that there's a lot of other stuff here that's not assisted living. So I look down there, and the first thing that jumps out is how many stars. So I look at Carlton Plaza, 2.5 stars, thinking that's not so good. I look at that. I've talked to a number of people about assisted living at Carlton Plaza, and it has gotten high marks from most of them. They feel their parents are getting good care. Unfortunately, our only experience, probably many people are not even going to read past that. Then you've got Regency at Evergreen Valley. It's got 5 stars with 4 reviews. Lincoln Manor's got 3.5 stars, sort of so-so. Come down, you've got Aspen Barbara, which is a referral. Golden Heritage, which got 5 stars. And so you start looking at this, and you find that there are some facilities that having some communities that have some great ratings. Most of them don't. You've got Atria here. I'm going to pick on Atria again a little bit because it's got 5 reviews. So we go to Atria. Look at it. It's got 5 reviews. The first one is a 5-star, which is terrific. Next one is a 1-star. Horrible. This isn't sour grapes. Very, very negative stuff. And then another negative one. Then a positive one, and the ones on top are going to be the most recent. And so this can be a really, really significant piece of your pie. It's something you need to really be looking at and watching. People tend to look at listings that have more reviews than have fewer reviews. People tend to trust bad reviews more than good reviews. So as I look at this, we see Carlton because it's first. That's a huge place. Regency is second, 4 stars and 4 reviews. So you've got good and bad. And so what happens is somebody will go and they'll look at a community and think, well, I got to do some research on this. And so they plug in the name, and they look at that and they read the good and the bad, and then say something like on Atria where it's sort of a 50-50, they say, I'm nervous. And then they go do a Google search, and they're going to look. That's where Google Plus might come in. And so here are some things that you can specifically do to make sure that Yelp and these services actually work for you. At least once a month, go in and look at Yelp and Google Plus. Look at both old and new reviews. People are more interested in the new reviews than old reviews. Ask staff and residents to post reviews if you don't have any. Ask them to be honest, but do not, whatever you do, pretend to be a family member or a staff and write your own great reviews. Don't write reviews for others to post. Look at what people are saying about your competitor. Look at what's important and what's not. It might even be something, if you've got great reviews and the competitor doesn't have such great reviews, that you might even want to point somebody in the direction of Yelp and say, hey, look at what other people are saying about us. It's another thing that you can do newsletter blasts about. You can do email blasts. You can talk about in your whole marketing program. So what do you do if you're slammed? The first thing is that if you are slammed, the first thing you need to do is you need to do an honest assessment of whether or not the complaints are legitimate. If they're legitimate, you need to fix whatever it is that people complained about. And then once you've fixed it, or if maybe it's not a legitimate complaint, you need to sort of think about what your story is for staff and families. And then you need to go talk to your family members and maybe even say, look, we know you love us and you know how good care is, and somebody has slammed us really, really hard here. Would you be willing to go write a review? And because what you're attempting to do is to push those reviews out of sight, out of mind, to get your star numbers back up. Ask vendors who are supporting you to write about you. Just the way to fix these, the way to improve the ratings is to get new reviews in there that say good things. And the only thing I would caution you about would be to not have reviews that are too good. This place is better than heaven. Nothing ever wrong. They don't charge me. They don't charge me any money. The food is perfect every time. Those kind of ratings don't ultimately get credibility. But the big thing you can do is to just pay a lot of attention to it and ask people to post when you get hammered. That make sense? The next thing is to make your community a community resource. Same community I talked about earlier that I was in Washington this last week, multi-level rental community, do memory care, independent living, assisted living. And they've taken their food service and they have actually licensed it as a restaurant. They've got a dining room that is pretty traditional with a very broad menu, and then they've got a little cafe where they serve breakfast and lunch. It's next to a business park, and they've gone out and they've used their restaurant to cater special occasions for businesses that are across the street. They've opened up their community as a restaurant, and so people come across to have lunch. They come across to have to have coffee. They use the building for meeting space to do meetings. They do things like corporate retreats or board meetings or that kind of thing. Invite in churches, clubs, Bible study groups, sports teams, service clubs, scouts. Hold seminars where you've got experts come in. Traditionally we see that happening with financial experts, but there are all kinds of things. Maybe in your own community you've got people who had positions where they were experts, and sometimes we'll see communities where one of those experts in the local community will do a presentation to the other residents. But rather than limiting it that way, invite the local community to come in. Invite school groups to come in and do Christmas programs and songs. Typically, schools are really struggle for places that they can go show off their students. Do things like flu shots that you offer to seniors. Do food drop-offs for Thanksgiving and Christmas baskets. Maybe even allow scouts or one of the other typically kid-type service groups to set up a fireworks stand in your parking lot. I really like this one community that has this huge list of things that they're doing. Let's see that. The Atrium, this is a story that's in the newspaper. Saturday, October 6th, they've got a festival day and car show. Saturday, October 20th, they have a shirted light evening of classical music. The 28th, they've got a Alzheimer's walk. And so they've got all these community-facing programs that are designed to make their community a part of the local community and not just an isolated place that people come, where the perception is that they've come to spend their last years. They come to die. And so we really want to make sure that our buildings are out there to become a part of that local community. And then the last one I want to talk about is, for just a few minutes, is that I'd like you to work on being newsworthy in your community. Figure out activities that you're doing that are going to be interesting to the public, because your newspaper, your radio station, your television station all have the same problem. You want to be visible. You want to be visible compared to the competition. You want to be attractive compared to staying at home. The newspapers want to increase circulation, maintain circulation. The radio stations want to have more listeners. The television wants to be watched. And so you're all in the same boat. And so as you start looking at your activities and the things you're doing, the role you have in your community, you need to be asking yourself, is the thing that I'm doing newsworthy? Or are there things that I can be doing that are newsworthy? News organizations particularly like things that have color. They like things that have children in them. They like things where there is an emotional tug. So you may very well have somebody in your community who has a great story to tell that can be a very, very important vehicle that people would be interested in hearing about. Just 2 days ago, Aaron Bonita, Gemini Consulting, did a presentation at the Oregon Healthcare Association on this very issue. It's just by happenstance that I came across this, and she showed a video that I really, really liked. There's a community that she works with that every year. I want to set up the video and then I'll show it to you. The community that she works in every year does a big community-based haunted house in the senior housing community. So they go in and they decorate it, and staff become goblins. They use local junior high school kids to come in and do goblins, and then they invite young kids, elementary school kids, to come in and trick or treat. And the residents just love being able to pass out candy to these costume kids. It's a safe place for parents to bring their kids to have a good time at this. And so as they were doing this, they went to a local television, an area television station, and told them about it, and they decided to send out a crew. And so they sent out this crew and a young reporter, and she decided that she didn't want to exactly do the same old thing of kind of watching as the kids go through. She decided that what she would like to do is sort of a day in the life and actually accompany a resident who went through the haunted house. So now watch what happens. So I'm not going to spend any time on these additional links, but the presentation will be available through Robert to download and take a look at. But these are just some ideas of some things that you can do to contribute to your community that people will talk about. The reason I like that video so much is that, as the reporter said, they've got 500 people who will come through that community in one evening. And you have to ask yourself, how many marketing efforts can you do? And you're like, it's young kids, young families, but everybody knows somebody, and so it's a way to essentially create, to find your mavens. And so I appreciate being able to present this to you today. I'd like to kind of open it up to see if there are any more questions that you have or any comments.
Hi, Steve. This is Robert Walker again, retirementhomes.com. We have a couple questions here.
Okay.
One of them is, what's the best way to start using Yelp and other review websites? I mean, how should companies, if it's unethical, a little bit dangerous to make fake entries yourself, should you advertise that to your residents, or how should you begin?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, and I think that one of the things that I would really do would be to encourage residents and their families to go in and post reviews. And if the reviews are something like mom went in, was really reluctant, and it took some time for her to get acclimated, but now she's got these new friends, and really talk very specifically about how the community has made mom or dad's life better. So it's a great question, and I think that ask actually even family members or people who refer or who use the services or provide services, medical transportation, maybe physical therapy, occupational therapy, rehab therapists who come in and talk about what a great environment is. Those are all the kinds of people where it really will make a difference.
Okay, we just
another
got
question.
Oh yeah, we just got a question now. So how do you specifically handle the bad reviews when they come in?
Okay, so bad reviews. I think that the biggest question is that in some cases you may actually want to go in and respond. That can be a really tough thing, particularly if it's an employee who's disgruntled because you've got privacy issues. But I think that the most effective thing that you can do to deal with those disgruntled questions, those unhappy answers, is to ask other people to go in and post and push those bad reviews down, to push those low star ratings down. They use sort of an averaging process where the most recent reviews get weighted higher. And if you have a couple of bad ones, we looked at one there that had one good one and then a couple of bad ones below. If they ask a couple of families to come in and say, just go to families who are friendly and say, look, somebody trashed us here. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to go in and tell them about what we do. And people are, if you're doing a nice job and doing a good job of taking care of their family members, people are generally pretty willing to go do that kind of thing. And so it's you can't go in typically and get those things, the bad ones, removed. But if you push them down far enough, or you see enough good ones, it just ends up looking like sour grapes, or in some cases it looks like you fixed maybe a problem that was actually there.
Okay. And now finally, we have one more here. Now you went through 7 different opportunities for senior living communities. You talked about Facebook and videos and Google+. What should be the priority? Community here says, okay, I'm sold. What should be the #1 step to take before embarking on the others?
So that's really an interesting question, and I guess the thing I always sort of struggle with when I get those kinds of questions is that if you look at a presentation like this and you say, well, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a few more pictures in my community, and you try it for a few weeks and you don't see any benefits, it tends to fall off the radar. And the truth of the matter is that these are all things that you need to do pretty consistently and you need to keep at. I think that Facebook is probably the most significant. And a lot of these things we talked about are things that maybe you're already doing and are sort of easy to do. The videos can go on Facebook, and so that becomes an important place to put those. Doing video becomes a kind of a scary thing, but I would mostly look in my community for people who are already Facebook addicts and ask them to get involved in this. It might actually be that you have somebody who's in food service that you can add. You'll obviously need to do some coaching so that they don't do things that are inappropriate, but if they've got some passion for it, it will go better. And so I'd start with Facebook. I think that for Yelp, that has to be something that's almost as much a preventive strategy as it is a proactive, although I think you can use it as a proactive strategy. And again, if you're the only community out there on Yelp and you've got, even if you've got 1 or 2 negatives, if you've got 15 or 20 really glowing reports, it's something that your marketing team can use to say, check us out, compare us to the competition, look at the positives we've got, and that really does make a difference.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Steve, for that presentation. Again, that was Steve Moran, blogger for Senior Housing Forum. This presentation will be available on our website, retirementhomes.com, as well as at youtube.com/retirementhomes, as you can see right on the page there. Our next webinar will be Wednesday, October 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, when we host Colin Milner, one of the world's foremost experts on active aging. He will show us how to take advantages of current trends in senior living and use them to increase occupancy. So once again, check retirementhomes.com for more information on that webinar. Contact me at robert@retirementhomes.com for all details, and please visit Steve's blog at seniorhousingforum.net as well. Thank you so much. Have a great day.